a little bit. I don't know about you all, but I do not get invited to many fancy dinner parties. I think you know the kind: white linen tablecloths, more forks and spoons than you know what to do with. And maybe your name is even engraved on a tiny little card at your designated seat, so pretty fancy. At events like that, I have often found myself not seated next to my date, Ellen, because I have to face it, she's a much bigger deal than me and that I have ever been. She was the producer and the star of a PBS TV show, recipient of many awards. She was a nightly news anchor, a city council member. And so quite naturally, at countless dinners like that where we attended, she would be up at the head table with the VIPs, and I would be seated by the kitchen doors, next to the restrooms in the shadows. And now I'm not bitter about this, really. It was fine. Me and the rest of the common folk, the spouses and the partners of the VIPs, we had a great time back there making snarky comments and enjoying the free food and rolling our eyes a lot. But those moments offered something more than just awkward seating. They were really lessons in humility. Because the truth is, dinner parties like that are really microcosms about how society functions. Whether we admit it or not, we assign value to people based on their wealth, their fame, their power, and their status. It's a very human impulse. There have been pecking orders ever since there were people to peck. And the problem is not necessarily honoring someone who's worthy of our respect. That's always a good thing to do. The problem is when we ever place lesser value on everyone else, especially those who do not fit our image of the ideal dinner guest, people who are the wrong age, race, gender, sexual orientation, economic status, level of education, nationality, religion, or politics. Ugh. Where do you seat Uncle Larry at Thanksgiving, him and his red hat? Most of us have an unspoken guest list and an unspoken seating chart. So the question Jesus poses in today's gospel is, why? Why would we not invite those people? And if we did invite them, where would we seat them? At a Pharisee's dinner party, Jesus notices the seating arrangements and offers what sounds like just some practical etiquette. He says, don't sit too close to the front. You might be asked to move to the back. Avoid that potential embarrassment. Save yourself the trouble. Better to start at the back of the room and then be invited forward. Just good strategy, right? And that was really just a reminder of that very same advice found in the Hebrew Scriptures in the book of Proverbs. Jesus did that a lot, by the way, reminding people of what was in the Bible. But only as Jesus can do, he takes what at first glance seems to be just common sense advice, and he makes a quick exit in a brand new direction that no one's expecting. He says, for all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Well, that was an amazing statement. Those folks already knew that the exalted can sometimes be humbled. They had read the book of Job, where the guy with everything he wants in life, great wealth, big family, perfect health, friends who held him in high esteem, how he lost it all and he was reduced to living on a trash heap. And they knew that sometimes the humble can be exalted. They knew the Cinderella story from the book of Ruth, where the poor girl who devotes herself to caring for her mother-in-law meets a handsome prince and lives happily ever after. So they knew those stories. There's actually a whole genre of literature in themselves that we still enjoy hearing, a reversal of fortune theme, either in a positive or a negative way. Cinderella is a good example. So is Aladdin. Great Expectations, Macbeth, The Great Gatsby, Harry Potter. But Jesus was pushing that point a bit too far when he said that all who are exalted will be humbled, and all who are humble will be exalted. All is a big word there, cowboy. In what utopian universe do all people get treated equally and with the exact same value? Sounds a bit naive at best, fairly woke, if you ask me, Jesus. Then Jesus pushes things even further. When you throw a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Wait, those people? The ones that society deems to be flawed or cursed? The ones who supposedly deserve their hardship? Not only a question of where I would seat them, why would I invite them in the first place? And Jesus answers, because they cannot repay you. Because any expectation of reciprocity, of you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, is tossed right out the window and is replaced with the ethos of we're all scratching everyone's back all the time. Now, if you heard him say that, your first thought might be, really? What kind of world would that be for people to treat each other like that? Can you imagine? No way. And Jesus says, yes way. Do this, and you'll be blessed. Now, it's important to remember Jesus was attending this dinner party at the home of a Pharisee. Well, Pharisees often show up in the Gospels where they play the role of antagonists of Jesus, and there's a reason for that, because they were the folks Jesus may have wanted to interact with the most, to open their hearts and their minds to a new way of understanding who God is and how God operates in the world. The Pharisees, they were good, solid, church-going people who believed as Jesus did in the concept of the resurrection. The resurrection is the idea that we can be transformed from one way of being to another. From death to life, it's true, but it's more than that. Now, we're all familiar with zombie movies. If you believe in resurrection, you're saying that one unfortunate reality of the human condition is that we can lack spiritual alertness and awareness. We can be alive, but emotionally and spiritually as good as dead. Our priorities, our focus, our motivation can be all about us. But resurrection is like rebirth, and out of that spiritually dead zombie way of being, where we see others as beautiful, worthy creations of God, and we cannot wait to love them. Where being alive is about how I can be of service, of use to others, where I can offer my seat to others at the dinner table. Resurrection is to awaken into a new way of living fully as citizens of God's kingdom. It's a transformation away from being dead to the world, out of that place where we're blinded by our assumptions and prejudices and fears and limitations, and also we're projecting all of those negative stereotypes onto our beliefs about how God works in the world, and allowing that to poison how we regard and treat others by ranking people on a scale of unworthy to worthy. To live in a resurrected way is to flip that script, knowing that our worthiness and belonging and love, it's already assured. It's to finally grasp that in God's eyes, everyone has worth. That in God's kingdom, no one is uninvited. No one gets stuck by the restroom. To live a resurrected life is to throw out the seating chart entirely. Now, we don't know if the Pharisees at that party accepted or rejected Jesus' idea, his radical vision of what God's really all about. They were the good, faithful, upright, church-going members of society, and so they were rather invested in preserving much of what gave shape to their social and religious structure. And Jesus' concepts just didn't quite jive with what seemed to be the natural, normal way of doing things, of human nature. That there's always going to be a pecking order, that there's always better seats for the right people, that there's always folks who are going to be left off the invitation list altogether because they just don't quite measure up to our standards. That's how things work in the real world, right? Are we really going to change that? But Jesus keeps asking, why not? And if not us, then who? I mean, what are we even doing here? Why do we bother belonging to a church in the first place, if not to keep discovering and practicing how to live and how to love in a different way Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Far too often, the church mimics the world. We create pecking orders of our very own. We behave like belonging requires believing in the right doctrine or worshiping in the right way. Now, we don't mean to exclude anyone, but standards are standards, right? Which might make us ask, oh, what's the point then if everyone's invited, if God already loves and accepts all people? The point is to proclaim that truth and to celebrate that truth in a world where we're increasingly segregated because of our nationality or our race or our citizenship status or our wealth. Simply proclaiming the truth of God's acceptance and value of all people is a radical act of hospitality and inclusion. The point is for us to reflect the kingdom where a person's value is not earned, it's just a given as an act of grace. Where inclusion is not conditional, inclusion is absolute. Where your seat at the banquet, it's not based on your resume, but on your humanity. And where the point is not to believe the right thing, it's to do the right thing. It's to awaken to our own belonging and make space for everyone else's belonging too. So our job is never to draw up the guest list. It's to catch up with what God's already doing in our lives and in the world, loving, inviting, and embracing every single soul to be with us at the table exactly as they are.